Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy hump day, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame. Bit of a pullback in the previous session, a breakdown from the developing 4-day. It was a developing 5-day range, eventually broke down, made it a 4-day compression. What's interesting about this again is that high right there. That's your key range high, that's your key range low right here, that's your midpoint right there. And the thought initially was if we're going to fail up here, we would rotate back to the center of the range. That may provide another bounce opportunity. A failure there opens up the bottom of the key range, and that could provide another buying or bounce opportunity. So those are the two paths here if we get additional selling pressure ahead. Now again, this market has been highly resilient, very buoyant, really lacks heavy directional conviction to the downside at the moment, especially since the first part of the year. Ever since we had our April bounce, this is about as big of a pullback as we've gotten here and there. It really hasn't been very meaningful at all. This was the biggest one we've seen, a 2-day move, and it just really doesn't register on this scale here. Obviously, if you zoom in, you can see a little bit more here. So really, this could still be an opportunity here where this market continues to churn up, melt up until proven otherwise, but really we're awaiting the Fed. This week is all about Fed week here. We got FOMC meeting minutes here later today. Jackson Hole begins today through Friday. Fed Chair Powell speaks Friday morning. How's the market going to receive the Fed here this week? And that's going to tell us a lot. So short term, this level right there, the key range high, very important. If bears continue to defend that area, that could provide that drop up ahead. So we may come into the top of the range, 6460, 6470 zone, and then start to see some weakness into the middle of the range at 6360, 6350. That could be a path forward. Early strength here could be sold for an inverted checkmark move down. We're still trending down on the very short-term time frame. So in order for this market to really catch some steam to the upside, you got to find acceptance through yesterday's midpoint. You have to find acceptance back above the key range high. So any morning strength into that zone here could be a selling opportunity until it proves otherwise. All right, looking at the NQ. Similar price action out of the NQ here. You can see the 4-day compression right there. Broke down out of the 4-day range yesterday and continued lower. Again, a downtrend overall, so if we see a little bit of strength here this morning, it could be sold for another round of weakness. We almost got the middle of the key range already. That's your key range high right there. That's the 23,845 level. It dropped off that level yesterday. Boom. And in that yellow line right there, 23,310 is the midline. Almost got there here this morning or overnight. Again, if we pull back, we could see a push into that zone proper. And a failure, really a failure through the 200 level here, opens up the lower part of the range at 22,775. So 22,775 would be the next downside target here. But this market remains bullish overall. And still, as I mentioned before, even if we fall across the range, this test in here could still provide a trap opportunity back up. It's here where it fails into a bigger correction. So still watching to see how that develops here today. But any morning strength could still be sold until proven otherwise, at least on a day time frame basis. Now looking at crude oil, you'll see right here crude currently up about 1%. This one's still having trouble getting off the mat. It has continued to drop into support. We have an inside day, the previous session here, and then here today just barely taking out the highs, but kind of a 3-day compression at these lows. Still hasn't been able to pop too much. This one, be careful being too long here. It just continues to quietly go down, and at some point the expectation is we're going to find a low and we're going to bounce it back to where we came from. It's just where do we find that low? Recently, the $60 level right here was a jumping off point. We're coming into that level soon. We're trading 62.50, so we're a couple of points off. If we dropped into 60, do we start to form some sort of bounce off that zone? Or are we headed for a fill of the 58.20? We keep mentioning that level. That could still be ahead. So again, this market continues to trend lower, lacks any kind of juice or energy. Maybe the $60 level provides a bounce. Looking at gold futures, this one is up 0.6% right now. Steady continuation to the downside, especially after giving up 3,400. We mentioned we're now back into the chop zone between 3,300 and 3,400. That zone right there, if you go back quite a bit of chop, when you get outside, you know, to the upside here, you drop back in, up here, over here. And if you get too low, you push it back up, push it back up. When do we get too low? Is it 3,300 and we bounce it back up? Is it 3,250? 3,250 was here. How low before we bounce it back up? This market is still range bound, coming down off of recent highs, all-time highs. Still building energy for a broader move to come. Is this a big distribution? Or is this a further buildup of energy for a continuation to the upside? The expectation is this thing remains strong, and any drop still in the 3,100 to 3,150 could provide a tremendous buying opportunity back up. So if we get a bigger flush, that could provide a better opportunity. From a short-term basis, back and forth here, it's on the way up right now, but once we reach levels into the 3380s to 3385s, do we start to form a little bit of resistance up here and turn back down a bit? That's been the case here each of the last several days, starting higher but finishing lower. Okay, looking at the YM, keep in mind we have FOMC meeting minutes later on this afternoon. We could see some early volatility followed by some compression heading into that number, or that the meeting minutes later on this afternoon. Right now, 4-day compression has turned into a 5-day compression here. Quite a buildup of energy up here. 44,800, a big time level there. If we break down and get a stop run day through there, that could open up some lower levels. But again, this market remains highly buoyant, very spongy here. Can absorb any pullback and then just releases that energy to the upside. Big time strength overall. We do have an expanding range, modest expanding range that is developed here at these highs. And this type of compression at the highs can tend to open the door to a pullback within range, followed by another bounce back. So do we see that path up ahead? Watching this 5-day compression for expansion down the road, we could get some decent movement. We can quantify that right now. So if I double click the PivotBoss advanced ADR indicator here, bring this up to 5 days, we'll apply that change, and it'll quantify the recent 5-day compression right there. 55% of compression, or 55% of average, only 600 points. It's usually around 1,000 points. And at the moment, if we were to get a breakout from this 5-day range, we're looking at about 1,250 points of range up ahead. That's pretty easy. We're sitting at 45,000 even. That's been the key level we've been talking about. 45.2 has been significant resistance. We're about to see a 1,250 point move here up ahead. Do we begin that breakout today, this afternoon on FOMC meeting minutes? Do we get it tomorrow? Expansion is coming out of this range, and it could be a solid move once we get that directional conviction. So keep an eye on this 5-day compression. Looking at Bitcoin, up 0.5% right now. Took out the recent lows right here. Those are the recent lows. We talked about the drop into the 112 zone and taking out those lows, and do we then begin to bounce it back up within the range, or do we fail at 112 and drop a little bit deeper into 110? Either way, 110 to 112 is the big time zone right here to watch for bulls. If we fail through the 110 zone, it opens up a broader pullback into 95k to 100k. So again, we're in a zone right now after taking out recent lows where we could begin to snap back the other way. Now, not the greatest rejection down here yet. We did get a modest lower low failure. Today's low is slightly lower than yesterday's low. That's why you're seeing a thrust reversal. but not the strongest rejection to say, yes, we're going up yet. So we could still come down here, mess around a little bit, and then get the bounce. But this is the zone to watch right here for the bounce back into the range. Failure here, and you're dropping back across this previous market structure right here. All right, looking at ETH, Ethereum up 1 1/3% right now. I mentioned here recently that we had this pullback here. Does that pullback breed another bounce opportunity to new all-time highs? Got a little bit higher to go to get those highs. And do we blow through those highs? Do we barely hit it and pull back? We've been in a very, very bullish trend here. At some point, the expectation is we take out not only 4,900, but push well into the 5,000s. 5,200 and 5,800 are the next major upside targets for this market. Of course, this is a big time area of resistance, all-time highs right here. So if we come up here in higher high failure, do we rotate back into the range some big degree? 4,000 very important right now. 3,400 very important as well. So can it hold 4,000 and make a move? We will see. Big time level here for Ethereum. Again, at some point, all trends come to an end, but this one has had quite a bit of juice here recently. Does it have one more move, or are we done? 4,000 is going to be the early test for ETH. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.